we had a clip from episode 2 of our podcast go viral on TikTok, and it was really interesting to see the comment section of what they were talking about. Basically, to sum up the clip, Colin and I were talking about how watching college basketball and watching NBA are really two different experiences, and that there's a certain genre of basketball fan that only watches college basketball because they feel that the players care more. They feel that there's actually defense being played, and there's a certain refusal that they have because they don't want to watch the NBA because it's almost like a
ISO driven, ISO driven street basketball, just every like cliche, frankly coded language in the book. So yeah, to Lucas's point, we had literally hundreds of comments. I think it's something like 250 comments on our TikTok, which we would definitely recommend checking out. But in either case, yeah, we kind of just wanted to address some of those points. I mean, I think at least on my end, like, I think frankly, a lot of the comments that we saw just like fulfilled the exact thing that we're talking about. Right. Like and first and foremost, like we're big college basketball fans. Like we're not only NBA fans. Like we watch tons of college basketball. We've always been like that, but you can't argue that the quality is much different because the level of player is different.
Well, so I guess when you say quality, it's hard to really, like, I don't know that you can say that there's a different level of quality of play. I think that like it's just two different experiences. Like one, and this is literally what I said in the clip, but the NBA, you have better players, so there's going to be more skill.
Yeah.
And ability to do individual player things, which I think if you like basketball, that's something that you should like to watch. Like I don't see anything wrong with watching in isolation. I don't see anything wrong with watching a lot of ball screens and what they do in the NBA versus in college, where you have a lot more sets and you have a lot more packed defense and packed paint. I don't know that I would say that they're different quality. Like I like them equally, to be honest with you. I just think that
it's two different
people took our comments out of context because we weren't saying that college is like we should look down on you for watching college basketball. Basically.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And I just think that and I stand by this, that I don't understand how you could call yourself a basketball fan but not watch one or the other.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, only watch one or the other.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think that there were some relative valid points in favor of and again, we're not shaming people who like college over the NBA, but you should, to your point, and I agree with your point that you should watch a little bit of both. If you're a big fan of atmosphere, if you enjoy kind of just the broader parody of college basketball, right? There's more upsets on a kind of night to night, week to week basis. Like that's totally legitimate. But yeah, I think that a lot of the focus in the comment section was about us hating on college basketball, and that's just not the case.
To kind of piggyback off your point about parody, I agree with that to an extent, just because at the same time in March Madness every year, you still see a lot of the same faces.
Oh, 100%.
You know, I mean, you still got the Blue Bloods, you still got all the same programs year after year, whereas like I don't necessarily feel that that's the same way in the NBA. Now, there might not be as many upsets in the playoffs, but I just, like, when you talk about parity, I don't know. Like, I feel like the NBA is pretty even league.
Talent is really spread out right now. And I think that the point that people try to make about parity is that, yes, it's common to see an 11 seed or a 12 seed get to the Sweet 16, but they're not getting farther than that for the most part. I mean, you had St. Peter's get to the Elite Eight this year, and then they lost, right? But yeah, to your point, like seeing anything further than a 5 seed, get to the Final Four is pretty uncommon. So, the cream of the crop is almost always getting to the end of the road in March Madness. So it's not as broadly broadly talented across the entire scape of college basketball as I think a lot of the commenters would like us to believe.
Right. And I also and I can throw it back too and say I feel the same way about the NBA fan that doesn't watch college basketball, right? Like I feel like you're missing out on a complete that's other elite basketball watching experience.
Yeah.
So it's really hard for me to. So basically, we're hating on the people that only watch one or the other.
Yeah.
Which honestly, a lot of people do fall in that category. And there's nothing wrong with it, right? So if you live somewhere where you're not near an NBA team, yeah, I can understand why you wouldn't want to watch NBA basketball. But I guess if you just consider yourself like a basketball person, I don't know how you could just watch one or the other like heavily.
Yeah. And as you're saying that, I want to pull up just some of these comments because they're just bad, bro. And like I'm calling out all of you 14-year-olds on here. Like you guys just don't know what you're talking about. Sorry. I stopped watching NBA because they cry about every call or non-foul. Complain. Nah, I'm good. That's at every level of probably every sport, not just basketball. It gets highlighted by a couple of guys in the NBA. I definitely get that, but to act like there's not complaining and talking to refs and technicals being called in the college level just doesn't make any sense.
I think that that's a valid point, but it's not going to steer me away from watching it completely. Like I do. I find myself getting annoyed by it when I watch games.
Agreed.
And like there's certain players that really have taken it too far.
Yeah.
But it's not something that bothers me so much that I'm not going to watch the NBA because somebody's complaining to the ref.
Yeah. It's like it's not taking the typical 2 to 2.5 hour watching experience to 3 to 3.5 hours.
Right.
Like it's not deterring the game that much.
Right.
Another comment, NBA regular season is the worst type of entertainment out there. NBA has no rivalries. Like, are you kidding me? Everyone just watches NBA highlights on YouTube. That last part, not necessarily wrong. There is a large, we talked about this before, that there is a large faction of quote unquote NBA fans who don't really watch games like that. But to say that there's no entertainment in there's just like this lazy opinion that like regular season basketball is just like your average bullshit pickup game at, LA Fitness or wherever the hell else, just like people walking up and down the court, just chucking threes, nobody's playing defense. I think that one pisses me off more than anyone, that there's no defense played in the NBA. Like that's just like,
not true.
That's just not true. Honestly, the difference is that there is the game is simply just longer. So the score is going to be higher. And then 2, the level of shot making is just, you can't find it anywhere else, frankly, globally, as you find it in the NBA. So people are just hitting tougher, more highly contested shots because they're just highly, at that level of skill. So just the argument that defense isn't played, that one just like, that drives me up a wall, honestly.
Defensive 3 seconds is the other one. It makes it hard. It makes it hard to be effective, help defense.
100%. And then on the other end of the spectrum, something that I would also understand, someone kind of falling into this category. I love college basketball more precisely because they aren't as good. It's more of a system-based game, not as much as a player-dominated game like the NBA. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. That's exactly what I love about college basketball is every team plays a different way. Mm-hmm. And so it's always something that you can learn from a coach when you're watching a game. Like, I like that part about college basketball. How that is like my one gripe with the NBA right now is that I just feel all the teams are running all like the same plays and doing the same thing defensively, and there's very little teams with an identity.
I would definitely agree with that. Another comment that got at me. I hate the NBA, to be honest. Not enough defense, too many threes. This is another lazy argument because I actually saw a Twitter thread about this, I think like last week, where someone showed the average points per game in like think it was like a 1983 season in comparison to like 2021. It's not that far off. It's just that the game has changed fundamentally. You look at a lot of those, even if you want to just cherry pick like, championship series back in the 80s, like those Celtics Lakers series, like those were games finishing in like the 125 points plus,
right?
On a night to night basis. It's just that the game has changed drastically from a, mid-range post heavy game that we saw, in the late, in the 80s and 90s, and even to the 2000s to a certain degree, where now it's, definitely a perimeter oriented game, but scoring as a whole, yes, probably in totality, it's definitely up. But, the top of the league is still scoring at relatively the same level as it has been for the last 30, 40 years.
Right. But with that being said, I do agree that the amount of threes that are being taken now, it does bother me a little bit watching the NBA.
I would agree with that.
It's heavy. I mean, you can go back to back to back to back possessions where teams are taking threes and you're kind of just like, you really feel like almost like it's the money ball effect on basketball.
Yeah.
Sometimes watching these games, but again, it's not something that's going to make me not want to watch the game.
Yeah, I completely agree. Let me just see if I can find just a couple more comments, and then I'll stop harping on these TikTokers.
Do appreciate the feedback, though.
Of course,
it's always good to get people talking about these things because you never know if it's going to cause somebody to watch more NBA or watch more college. Or to me, I think the more basketball you can watch, the better.
Mm-hmm.
I also just think like if you're coming at it from like the angle of somebody who's an NBA fan that doesn't watch any college, like why not try to catch somebody that's like the future of the league, somebody that, at the very least watch like a draft prospect or somebody like that, watch it from like an NBA angle.
Yeah. College basketball has better atmosphere, legacy, competitiveness, and each team has their own way of play, plus a much better playoff format. It's just different, I just don't think you could call it like, you can't polarize it as like it's just objectively better than the other. Like they're just different. It's not two different games. It's still basketball, but just like the entire structure around it is built differently, and you just have to be able to appreciate both.
And I think that's why it's going to be interesting to see if the NBA does this mid-season tournament, because I wonder if that'll be like a single elimination type of tournament that they're going to try to make like almost like March Madness style. Yeah. And they're saying that the winners essentially of the tournament, they'll get like an extra $1 million per player.
That's an interesting motivation, because that was going to be my next point. Is just like what's really motivating these guys to get up for a tournament like that, because kind of in today's load management era, how do you look at a guy like, and LeBron is in a class of his own, no one really plays this late into their career at the level that he is, but like how do you tell a guy who's in his late 30s and like his 20th season, like, oh, we need you to play an extra 5-6 games, and like what does that really do for him, right? So I feel like it will kind of bring up some like further conversation of like whether it's like really valuable or if this is like a money grab for the NBA to just like get more viewers and just have a different type of format for people to get attracted to.
Yeah, there's definitely been some negative feelings from players about it. Yeah. But it's, again, there was negative feelings from players about the play-in tournament, and that's been a wild success, I would say. Yeah. I think that's one of the best things that's happened to the NBA playoffs in a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would agree with that. And there's examples of in-season tournaments in other sports. Not very many American sports, but I know that I know like the Premier League Soccer does it, and I know a couple other European soccer leagues do that as well. They have the Champions Cup, which is like the best teams from, or Champions League rather, which are like the best like 5 or 6 teams from each major European league. That all come together for a tournament. So there definitely is a precedent that it can be successful. I think having a college basketball style like single elimination or round robin type tournament, could definitely do something for people. But inevitably, like most things that just get like introduced, people are just going to be hesitant towards it, off the rip. So we'll see.
Right. And then there's one more thing that I think that we need to address when it comes to college basketball is that I just think the talent level has gone down a little bit too. That's something that I don't think was addressed in a single comment, because elite players, they have more options now. You can go to G League Ignite, you can go to Overtime Elite.
Yep.
And I definitely have felt while watching college games that I just don't feel like there's as many top tier elite, like almost like draft prospects at some of these like high level schools as there were. How many teams are you getting outside of the Dukes, Kentucky's, are you getting multiple guys drafted, right? You don't see too many schools like that anymore, but so there's been a little bit of a talent drain in college basketball, and that's to me affected my viewing experience of it.
I would definitely agree. And I wonder how that that talent drain even gets deeper with the NBA changing their parameters on getting drafted right out of high school.
Right.
Which is supposed to, it doesn't go into play next year, but or maybe it does. Within the next 2 years, you're going to have high school seniors declaring for the draft, basically.
So that'll be a talent drain. And I do think that NIL was positive, because there were a lot of guys that probably would have just gone that stayed this year. And I think college basketball is in for a really good year. There's I think a few more teams with just more continuity than I have remembered in the past. Like somebody like a Drew Timme coming back, Hunter Dickinson coming back.
Yeah,
you think about guys like that, and I don't know. In years past, they might have just left. You know what I mean? Because they could make some money. But
exactly.
So I think that's going to help for the short term. But I still think that there's long term concerns for college basketball for sure.
Yeah. Made an interesting point about Drew Timme. He was quoted as saying that he's going to make more this year as a college basketball player than he would as a probably minimum level rookie, probably.
Right.
So just another incentive for guys to stay a little bit longer.
Yeah, because these schools they're dishing out a lot. they're whether I don't know where it's coming from. That's the one thing about NIL that I've been trying to figure out, is a lot of these guys are getting paid now, but I haven't seen anybody in a damn commercial. Right?
Well, you know who? Do you remember that clip went viral a couple of years ago about this kid? I think he's like out of like Florida or New Orleans, and his name was like the coldest to ever do it, or something like that. So he's a freshman, like wide receiver at Nebraska, and he got an NIL deal with like a local like air conditioning company or something like that. So he got a deal there. Bronny just got $1 million from Nike, which obviously we'll call it what it is, but nepotism, because of his dad with Nike. But I'm also a Bronny believer, so you can quote me on that as well. But yeah, to your point, not fully clear on where a lot of this money is coming from for a lot of these kids.
Well, because the whole thing about name, image, and likeness is you're not being paid by the school. You're allowed to basically make money off of your name, but. So I was expecting to see like this massive influx in commercials or I don't know, billboards or social media promotions. I feel like every time there's an NIL deal, it's like somebody takes a picture with their product announcing they signed the deal, and then like nothing happens after that.
Yeah.
Which makes me feel like college basketball is almost kind of maybe like legalized cheating in a way. NIL. So that's another thing that I think we should keep tabs on, is like what happens with NIL, because it feels like the wild west right now for college basketball.
Well, to your point, like I can't tell you like where I heard this clip, but I know that I saw it and heard or read it somewhere. But basically, like college coaches saying that like they're struggling to get recruits to come there, because like basically these recruits are forcing these teams or programs to help facilitate NIL deals. So it just seems like a bizarre, like to your point, like wild west, like it's totally unregulated, but like how does it make sense that you're like requiring, quote unquote, requiring these schools to go out and like hunt for a deal for you somewhere within like the local community? Like it just doesn't make sense.
That's the thing, is actually the teams aren't allowed to.
But that's
so
the
like
point.
that's the NCAA rule. So it's like, who exactly who exactly is getting those. Well, I mean, I think that there's like a lot of like under the table stuff with it right now, and that's very like obvious to me, like from the outside looking in.
That's how it's always done.
Right, but now it's like more, it's like over the table, but it's not exactly over the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so. Exactly. Like I feel like I also read somewhere that like I think it's like Auburn football or something like that has like the highest like NIL average like across like any like major like sports program in college sports. So it's like that Auburn as an institution is like helping facilitate those, right. For most of their athletes.
But I'm just also ready to hear like some like NIL success stories, like somebody coming up with a phrase and selling like a million T-shirts, or I feel like you just haven't heard any of those stories. It's mostly been like a school like Gonzaga essentially somehow funneling all the money to make sure their best player stays. And
facts.
It's like, I don't know exactly what comes out of it, but maybe I'm just not in those fan bases, so I'm not paying attention to, their day by day, what they see. But
one that I can remember is Ohio State quarterback C.J. Stroud. He has a deal with Express, the clothing store, and like basically he had a clip go viral because he bought like the entire team like suits or something like that, like ahead of one of their first like big games of the regular season. But to your point, like it's few and far between in terms of just like us on the outside looking in, like just having that clarity of like where this is coming from, like being front and center on a deal, billboard, commercial, whatever it is. So it all seems very, like you said, it's over the table, but feels kind of the same level of under the table that it's kind of always been.
Right. But with that being said, I think it's really helped college basketball this year. And but we'll see over the course of time how it plays out.
Yeah, agreed.
What else, man?
Can I go on a tangent here?
Yeah.
Bronny is the real deal. I'm telling you right now. I don't care what anyone says, man. Like I just think he's going to be super solid.
Yeah.
Total tangent there.
Okay, but when you say the real deal, like what do you mean?
He's definitely in my eyes, he's an NBA player. I'll say that. I'm not saying that I don't think he's a perennial all-star, comes anywhere near his dad.
Right.
That's like an absurd expectation, obviously.
Right.
But
I guess my point is like who is disagreeing with you?
I think there's plenty of disagreement, especially online.
Really?
Yeah, because people want to just lean into, oh, well, it's because his dad is an NBA player.
Right.
That's why he's getting the looks that he's getting. I think everybody. And like, right, this is a cyclical conversation, right? Like you watch clips of him in high school and people want to discredit it and say, well, he's not playing against good competition, right? That was the thing about Zion. People wanted to crap on LaMelo Ball when he was in high school, right? Because people didn't like his dad. People said he couldn't live up to be as good as Lonzo. He's better. So I think that there's just like a lot of commentary of saying like he's not as special as people want, just like the general consensus of people want to believe. He's undersized. He's only about 6'3", 6'4". But that man's jumping out of the gym. I mean, he's a freak athlete. Starting to shoot the ball really well. I just want to see him do well, honestly. Yeah. Like I'm never the type of person that's just gonna like shit on a high school student, just in general. But I definitely think that the comment that he's not at all an NBA player, I think it's just totally out of whack.
But I just feel like that comes from like people that like aren't really in the weeds, like watching his stuff. Like I feel like they're just like watching his.
I'm addressing y'all.
I don't feel like that's like an educated basketball take. Like I feel like real basketball people know that he's a top 50 ranked player, right? He's getting recruited. He plays EYBL and puts up like good numbers.
Yeah.
I just don't. I think there was a point when he was playing at Sierra Canyon when they had Brandon Boston and those guys when he was a role player, right?
Yeah.
He was a sophomore. And when you're playing for a really good high school team like that, like you're not going to be able to stand out. I just think that, I just look at him like, yeah, no, like, no shit, he's going to be good. You know what I mean? Like, not. I don't really feel like you're making like I don't feel like it's like a bold take. You know what I mean? Like, it's like he's LeBron's son. Like, he's got every resource in the world to like be good. Like, he's got, you know what I mean? Like,
I completely agree with you. Maybe I'm just a little bit too much in the, I don't know, Ball is Life comment section, just, paying attention to people who don't really watch it like that. But I just look at him and I'm just like, how do you guys not see it? But I think it's just, kind of just the internet troll culture, just like wanting to like, crap on a kid when he's, on his way up. Is he going to be his dad? No. But like the kid's talented.
Yeah, he's talented. I've actually gotten to see him in person and I like him too. I don't really see him. He very well could go one and done just because they want to play together.
Yeah.
And if any team is going to be able to get LeBron, like I think that's going to be so interesting when that happens because there's going to be teams that like want to get him. You know what I mean? And like, would you take him as the first pick in the draft? If that meant you're getting LeBron?
I mean, that's absurd. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, I mean, I feel like we talked about this like a couple of years ago. Like it might. God, that would be such a bad look, though. You know what I mean? Because and again, we're probably 2 years away from him even being in these actual like draft conversations. But I have a hard time seeing him get to a place where he's legitimately in that conversation, not in association with his dad. You know what I mean? So like that would be, I think, a bad look on both of their behalves.
And it's really going to depend too. That's why his decision of what he does, whether he plays college basketball or goes one of the other routes, is going to be interesting because I feel like for him to go high in the draft, or he's going to need to put up some sort of, he's going to produce.
Yeah.
Need to produce, and it's going to be hard, but that because that'll be the 2024 draft. So it's after this crazy draft that's coming up. And I'm really interested to see what happens because I think that there's a case for him going first.
Dude.
There's a case.
There definitely is a case, but it's like, how much are you're really gonna leverage like your top 3 pick to get a 40-year-old LeBron?
Bro, LeBron shifts the economy in the cities that he's in. You're telling me from a business perspective that you're not going to take LeBron?
See, to me, it seems like a short term. Given where Bronny is at right now, it seems like a short term gain when you can make really big, decade-long smart decisions with an elite player like that.
But so I mean, if you look at LeBron like a Tom Brady type of guy, which I think he is, he could very well end up playing into his 40s and still being effective. Like you're getting a good basketball player too, right?
Yeah, you're not,
and you're getting somebody that players want to play with.
Yeah.
So I think there's a legitimate case for him going first in the 2024 draft.
That's crazy.
Not saying that not saying that he's like that type of player. I don't even know that he's a first round pick.
Yeah.
In that draft.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's a one and done guy.
Yeah.
I think he's good. He's athletic. He can shoot. He's a high IQ player, but. That's going to be a really interesting one.
It'll be really interesting, and I think to your point, like we're talking about all the factors here. I mean, it just totes the line for me of just being like almost ethically wrong.
I don't think it's ethically wrong. I think it's strategic.
It definitely is. I'm not going to argue with that, but it's just like, okay, if he is with just a basic like informed basketball eye test. And you look at him and you're like, okay, he is let's just say like he tops out as a late first round, early second round type of talent. And he jumps up 25 spots, to being a top 3 pick. Like, yes, there's the argument that it's like a strategic like business decision. You get his dad to hop along, then your team goes from a bottom 5 team to a like, essentially contender in a matter of a year because you've now been able to attract talent, whatever it is.
Like, do you think that this is secretly OKC's plan? Like OKC is eyeing LeBron?
At this point, I think they're eyeing. I think they're eyeing Victor, but
I mean, the worst case is you don't get Victor. Like you very well could get Bronny James.
That's crazy.
You could trade for Bronny James.
They've got
they've got more.
They've got about 40 picks through now in 2020.
Yeah, that's what I'm
2030.
saying. I mean, and they're gonna have a team to like surround him with too.
Yeah.
It's not like you'd have Shea, you'd have Josh Giddey, you'd have Chet.
It's going to be really.
It could, and you just can't tell me if you're in Oklahoma City and you have an opportunity to get LeBron.
Yeah.
You're not turning that down.
That's just crazy.
He's going to shift the economy.
It's just crazy to think that like it'll be. I mean, it'll be a one of one scenario. Obviously, like just probably this will be easily the first time that it's ever happened, and it probably will never happen ever again. Of just someone's draft stock jumping up to a high lottery pick, just off the flex of your dad.
Right,
like it's nuts.
And then whoever's like supposed to be that number one pick in that draft, man.
Oh, they're gonna be salty.
They're gonna be they're probably gonna go off
on rush
right.
when they have a chance. But yeah, it's just like it's just an interesting conversation to like see it now.
But like just to bring it back to OKC, like if you're OKC, like you don't need another young guy.
No, you don't.
Right? Like you don't need another 21-year-old to like develop for the next 3 years. Like
you need LeBron.
Yeah, you need LeBron.
Dude,
this could crazy. Be the Thunder could be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, they really could. Jesus,
Thunder
man.
could be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
It might, but it might not even be the Thunder. It might be
the Jets.
Could be you.
Oh, I don't want to see that happen.
LeBron in Utah.
I don't want to see you. I don't.
Well, funny connection there because D Wade is a minority owner. He's a minority owner.
I didn't even think of that.
Well, I feel like that even kind of a tangent off that, just like feeding into like the conversation about nepotism, like Dwayne Wade's son, Zaire.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah.
That guy's not an NBA player.
He's not an NBA player.
But he's sitting on that G League squad.
Right.
But I think
that's different though.
Different how?
I mean, because like you're not getting D Wade. That's just like straight nepotism. Like that. That's just, you know what I mean? That's I feel like that's a totally different version.
That's
of
fair.
Whereas Bronny, like you're getting value, right?
Yeah,
like that's just straight.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like there's also just and I'm not in favor or wanting to see LeBron's talent or ability drop off on any level, but I think it'll just be like I feel like there's just like a weird intersection between like the kind of like nepotism that's like associated with Bronny's potential draft and just like where that coincides with LeBron still being at a like high level. You know what I mean? Right. So, and again, you can only evaluate that until you actually get to that point. But it's just kind of an interesting like intersection of the two.
Yeah. And the other one that we haven't talked about too is, and LeBron said this the other day, is the expansion of the league too. In that LeBron may want to buy a team and then they have like an expansion draft and he's
player owner.
Yeah.
Player owner GM.
Right? on some Bill Russell.
Bill Russell was only the
player coach. Yeah, but yeah, player owner.
Owner.
That would usher us into like a whole new era of like sports, basically.
Bro, just the media out, not necessarily outrage, but just like people wouldn't know how to handle it. You know what I mean? I mean,
I actually think that might be the most realistic thing to happen. LeBron that buys a team in Vegas and then goes to play for him.
That makes a lot of sense.
I mean, so when the Bobcats came to the league, like they
got
like,
the number one.
Yeah.
They got Emeka Okafor.
Yeah.
That's normally how it works. I know that's how like the Texans when they came in the NFL, they got the number one. So
right.
That's how it's going to operate.
Right. So I mean,
I don't know. Is the NBA going to have that team ready for 2024? Because I've heard it's 2025.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I don't know, but that to me jumped out as like the one option.
That makes a lot of sense.
That if it were to happen in 2024, would be the most likely.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like we could see LeBron in a Utah Jazz or OKC Thunder jersey, which just feels weird.
Super weird.
But I mean, it feels weird to see Tom Brady in a Bucks jersey.
Oh yeah, bizarre.
So I mean, it's not that different. I guess because that's like a smaller market, Tampa,
tiny.
Yeah,
Yeah, Tampa's.
you know what I mean. Market. So it could be that same model. And then I mean, shoot, if he's able to do some things out there too, like that, could you imagine?
God, how it's just. And as a lifelong Tom Brady hater, I wanted to see the talent drop off, but it hasn't.
Right.
I'm a huge LeBron fan, so I want to see the talent continue. And all the respect in the world to Tom Brady, the guy's the GOAT. I'm not going to argue that. But point being, how long does this last for Bron? Because like it's just a different being a quarterback, like versus being an NBA player. It's just such a different toll on your body,
right?
So I'm just like wondering how. I mean, what he's 38 now? Because this is his 20th season, correct? So he's so he's 30. He's 38, right? He came in the league at 18.
And so if he wants to play with his youngest son, Bryce, he'd have to wait 5 years because Bryce is a sophomore now.
That's crazy.
So he would be 43.
Nah.
Yeah. But I mean, he doesn't. Nuts. He hasn't aged that much, really. I mean, he's definitely, and I have a video coming out this week. It's probably, by the time you listen to this, it'll probably be out. But I mean, he's gradually over time become more of a 3-point shooter and attacking the rim a lot less. But he, I mean, I think that he's going to play for a lot longer.
Jesus, man.
Unless he gets injured. I mean, I think that's the only thing that could potentially be in the way.
Yeah, and he's basically spent an entire career just not being injured.
Yeah.
Except for, what was that, 2 years ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago. He was a little injured last year, too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I do think, I don't know how we got here to the future. We're talking about the future of the league.
Well, because we were sitting here talking about the, college NBA discussion, and then I was like, I gotta shout out my boy Bronny real quick, man. Like I believe in you, bro. If you see this, but yeah, total tangent here.
It is funny how like topics like that are almost like even more fun to talk about than like, oh, hey, the NBA is starting next week. Like, you know what I mean? But it's like there's so many things like on the line. Like even today, I was like just thinking of the future of the Warriors because they just re-signed Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah,
and it's just like, oh my god, like what's going to happen with Draymond? Is Draymond go to the Lakers? Like what's going on? Yeah, he's got to be. He's got to be, right? Because they also still have to re-sign Clay.
Mm.
So I mean, they're going to re-sign Clay over Draymond, I would think.
100%.
And yeah, it's that's going to be like one of the more fascinating cases of like legacy because if Draymond goes to another team and is just ass, like what is that going to mean for his legacy? Like he's going to be a Hall of Famer, right? But there's still a faction of people that are anti Draymond, like don't think he's good. Right, which is wrong. And especially as somebody who's coached basketball, like you see the value of what he does more so than your average fan because he doesn't have that sexy game, or he doesn't have a bag, or he doesn't do the things that stars do.
I mean, he's literally the epitome of a glue guy.
Yeah, he's like probably one of the best glue guys ever,
probably of all time.
But it is going to be interesting if he goes to a team like LA or Detroit Pistons or I don't know. The place that I would actually really like to see Draymond would be in Portland.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. But yeah, I think he will have to find a. It's hard to replicate the Golden State Warriors scenario for him, obviously, but like in order to not, to your point, tarnish his legacy, he has to find a place where he can just jump into that same exact role.
I mean, LA could be that for him,
definitely.
But they're gonna have to do something about that spacing over there because
looking ugly, man.
Yeah.
They just signed who's that kid? Something Ryan.
Matt Ryan. He was on the Celtics last year.
Yeah. They just signed him because he was shooting like almost 40% from three during the preseason.
He's got a strap.
Yeah, that shit was looking ugly, bro.
But it's still like you could sign somebody like that. How much is he going to play? You know what I mean?
Not that much.
I just still feel like the top 9 guys of that roster, there's just not enough shooting.
I'm just wondering what they do because I just think that roster as constructed is like they're a playing team.
We could see a trade here in the next few weeks. I think.
Yeah, definitely could.
I really have a hard time seeing them holding on to Russ. But at the same time, I also have a hard time seeing any team wanting to take him.
Yeah,
Like,
who
what team? And I think we need to wait and see if there's like some sort of injury that happens to some sort of point guard on a
Which
contender.
will happen inevitably.
If there's a point guard on a contending team, I could see Russ getting traded to that team.
Excuse me. I could definitely see that. But yeah, how that roster is constructed right now, it's just it's not going to happen for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless he can make a drastic turnaround.
Right. Right. Well, that's about all I got, man.
That's about it, bro. To all the fans, appreciate you. Thank you. Like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends. Yeah, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.